You ever hear something on the radio that didn't sound like it came from any place on Earth? Something that wasn't a voice, not exactly, but used one anyway? I was a park ranger once, Wrangell, St. Elias, Alaska. Largest wilderness in the United States. You could walk 3 days in one direction and still be surrounded by the same silence. No highways, no lights, just endless snow, the color of old paper, and wind that speaks like it remembers things. This is my recording, my confession. It's not official. It's not in any report, because what happened out there, what we found, was never supposed to be real. 20 years ago, I was part of a 3-man ranger team assigned to inspect an old research outpost on the far edge of park jurisdiction. Coordinates redacted, labeled simply Zone B7. The file said the area was closed due to unstable ground, sinkholes, fractured ice shelves. That was the official reason. The real reason was the whispers. Even back then, people in the villages said B7 wasn't a place, but a sound. A place the radio couldn't map, where compasses spun like drunk flies and names got lost on the wind. The night before I left, I remember staring at the park's topographic map and noticing that the area around B7 had no contour lines, just blank white. No elevation data, like the land itself refused to be measured. My supervisor said, "Just a weather anomaly, ice distortion. Don't overthink it." But there was a pause after that, long enough that I could hear his breathing tighten. Then he added, "Stay on marked routes. And if you hear something that sounds like yourself, don't answer." I laughed. I wish I hadn't. They sent us by Snowcat, me, Ranger Danvers, and the rookie, Elias. Danvers had been out there 15 years. He didn't talk much, but he always whistled this one tune when he was nervous. Couldn't place it. Something old and broken, like a lullaby missing half its notes. Elias was just out of training, still believed Alaska was all about campfires and postcards. When we hit the boundary line, the Snowcat GPS flickered once, then went blank. Danvers stared at the monitor, tapped the glass, and muttered, "All ready?" The rookie asked what he meant, but Danvers didn't answer. The next 5 miles were dead air. No birds, no shifting branches. Even the engine sounded quieter, like the snow was swallowing every sound before it could echo back. We passed 3 warning signs nailed to frost-bleached trees. Restricted zone. Survey incomplete. Do not enter without clearance. But the signs were half buried, like no one had been there in years. At one point, Elias asked if the Forbidden Zone stories were real. I told him stories always grow out of something, but they only survive if people stop checking the facts. He didn't laugh. There was a story I'd heard from another ranger years before, about a team that went missing in the 70s. Supposedly, they were mapping seismic tremors near the same area. All 3 disappeared. When rescue teams found their campsite, the tent zippers were open from the inside, and their footprints walked in 3 different directions. But each set ended abruptly, half a mile out, like they'd just evaporated. We reached the research cabin by late afternoon. Snow stacked against the walls like the mountain had tried to bury it. The door was frozen shut. Danvers shouldered it open. Inside, everything smelled of rust and silence. There was a journal on the table, pages warped from moisture. The first line read, "It calls in familiar tones." That phrase, it would stay with me for years. We unpacked. The stove still worked somehow. I remember sitting near it, staring at the frost on the inside of the windows, watching it pulse ever so slightly with each gust of wind outside. Not melt, just breathe. That night our radio picked up a transmission. Weak, almost gone in the static, but I caught one word. Ellis. Same as the rookie's name. The voice sounded like his mother. He froze, mouth open, said she always called him by his middle name, and that the voice on the radio did too. We tried replaying the tape. Nothing but hiss. The first night in the zone lasted 13 hours. No sunrise. Just gray that refused to brighten. Ellis said he heard something moving around the cabin after midnight, footsteps crunching in circles. We checked. No prints. Only smooth snow, untouched. I didn't sleep, kept staring at the map we brought. There was a black mark where the cabin should have been. No grid lines, no coordinates. Just one word, written in red pencil. Faint but clear. Listen. Wind almost like breathing. By dawn the stove had gone cold even though the flame still burned. The air felt heavier as if something enormous had settled on top of the roof. Danvers finally said, "Whatever's out there, it doesn't want to be named." I didn't understand what he meant back then. Now I think I do. Names have power, and when something learns yours, it doesn't forget. I'm recording this because I know it's coming back. Every year when the wind shifts north, I hear that same voice on the radio. It says my name the way only I can say it. Same breath, same pause, same tired tone. Not real. Real, not real. If you're hearing this, keep listening, but don't answer back. Because that's how it starts. We made camp because the light never came back the way it should. Just a bruised gray pressing down on the mountains until even the snow looked tired of being white. Danvers checked the anemometer, frowned when the cups spun with no wind, and pretended it didn't matter. Ellis stood too close to the window, his reflection pale and double, like a future he wouldn't get to keep. I boiled coffee that tasted like a pocket full of nails and told myself bad coffee was better than no coffee at all. "Outbuildings first in the morning," I said, though nobody asked. "Fuel dump, relay mast, then the cache." Danvers nodded once. Ellis said, "You hear that?" and went still. The cabin answered in its own small ways, the stove ticking as metal cooled, the lantern glass settling with a sigh, the old timbers talking to each other in wood language. Outside, the spruce line leaned in, black spines of some hibernating thing. I stepped out to check the sled lashings. The door sounded like a throat clearing before a story no one wanted. Cold reached under my clothes like a hand. I kept my headlamp off because I didn't want to see the trees too clear. The clearing felt shallow, like we were standing on the lid of a deep jar. Every footstep made a new echo in the snow. Wrong for snow, but the ear insisted, the faint grit of something ground too fine. They say B7 isn't a place so much as a note. That's what the old stories warned. Treacherous ground, sure. Fractured ice, absolutely. But more than that, a line your ears cross before your feet do. Step past it and speak a name, and the land remembers. It keeps the shape of your mouth, the heat of your breath, the exact tilt of your voice. Later, when you're tired and your light is low, it gives it back, not as a kindness, as bait. I didn't believe that when I was younger. I do now. Back inside, Danvers had the topo map spread under his gloved hand. The area around our cabin was a blank, no contour lines, no elevation ink, just white, like a secret. Someone had circled our position in red pencil and written a faint word at the edge that looked like it had been erased and returned. Listen. Ellis sat, hands wrapped around the tin mug he wasn't drinking from. The GPS died right at the sign, he said, like he was trying to make an alibi for a machine. That's not normal. Nothing's normal this far in, Danvers said. He didn't whistle, but I could hear the ghost of that tune he makes when he's nervous. 2 notes from a lullaby missing the rest. He's done it since I met him. Sometimes I think the melody found him here first and just waits until he returns. Swelling, flattening. We slept in shifts. When it was my turn to listen, I turned the radio volume down until the hiss was a curtain you could almost see through. A pattern formed in the noise, 3 tiny ridges like a whisper clearing its throat. A pause, then the softest exhale. My name hovered around the speaker a half-second before I thought it. Not spoken, more like a mouth rehearsing. Not real. Real. Not real. I didn't wake them. Dawn came slow and uncertain, the kind of light that refuses to commit. We strapped on snowshoes and moved through a world that had decided echoes were a luxury. Even our breath sounded taxed again. The relay mast leaned at an angle that felt personal. Ice grew in fine hair along the cables. Danvers crouched at the junction box and touched his meter to a dead line. The needle quivered, then settled on a number you only get with current. From where? I asked. He looked at the meter, then at us, then at the blank sky. From us, he said. He didn't mean body heat. Ellis drifted toward the tree line. He had that new ranger walk, alert, curious, not yet afraid of what curiosity costs. I saw someone, he said without turning. Blue parka, just behind that deadfall. It's a reflection, I said. Light plays tricks. In a sky like this? He asked softly. We called him back. He came, but he kept looking over his shoulder as if the color blue could lean. At the fuel dump, we found drums half swallowed, the stencils still legible under rhyme. As I scraped ice away, Danvers's tune brushed the air, except he wasn't whistling. His jaw moved. The sound didn't come from him. For a second, the melody threaded through the metal of the drums themselves. Inside the generator shed, time waited in a mouse-shaped statue, small body taken by cold, eyes perfect dark beads. The generator wasn't as corroded as it should have been. When I put a glove to its housing, a vibration climbed into my wrist. Not power, not warmth. Something under the floor with patience. Compromised, I said, and heard my voice from somewhere else a split second before it left my mouth. Compromised, Danvers repeated and wrote it down. His pencil left a faint shiver mark at the end of the word as if the paper had moved while he was writing. We inventoried the main outbuilding. Shelves with jars labeled in neat block letters. Fusses, gaskets, bolts. A notepad with a frequency schedule, dates marching cleanly until the last entry, which had been struck through hard enough to carve the page. I traced the groove and felt the impression sink into the sheet below it. There was a feeling in that mark. Urgency done late. What were they listening for? Ellis asked. Everything, Danvers said. He pointed at the ceiling seam where frost had formed thin veins clear as breath. The wood made small, old house sounds. Then came a new one, delicate as a knuckle, on the window glass. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. Someone's out there, Ellis said. He moved toward the window like tides move toward the moon. "Stop," I managed, but he'd already wiped a clear oval into the frost with his glove. Outside, white, trees, a ripple in the air like heat haze lifted out of summer and laid down wrong. In that ripple, the suggestion of blue, no body, no arm, just a color insisting it had a shape. The idea of a person trying on a coat, small, precise, no contact without verification, Danvers said gently, as if speaking from far away. He set a hand on Ellis's shoulder. "Rules keep you living." Ellis didn't nod. He didn't move at all. The glass fogged again from the other side like an answer you don't want. We stuck to the plan because plans make you feel less edible. At each checkpoint I called in on the radio. The first time the confirmation came back dull and delayed, like it had trudged through deep snow to reach me. The second time, the return carried a curl of my own cadence. By the third, I heard the smallest tilt I give to my name when I'm tired. The fourth time I didn't key the might. The fifth, I did. It didn't matter. Not real, real, not real. One soft strike, not from a machine, but from the day itself, stamping itself on us. Around midday, the stove clock blinked 12 o'clock and stuck there, like it was embarrassed for us. The compass needles spun, found north, lost it, chased a point that kept walking away. The map stayed white where it shouldn't. On the page, someone had circled the cabin and drawn a thin red line leading outward to the ridge, then stopping dead, as if the hand that drew it had been interrupted or persuaded. "We go to the ridge and back," I said that night, pretending it was still strategy. "No deviations. 10-minute check-ins." "Copy," Danvers said. He filled the word with weight. Ellis stared at the lantern, at the way its light pushed the dark back like a tired janitor. "I had a dream," he said, talking to the glass. "My mom called me in for dinner. She sounded young, like the old answering machine messages." He swallowed. "She used my middle name." "That's a memory," I told him. He shook his head. "It came from outside the window." I didn't answer. The wind didn't either. Circling the cabin, light, deliberate, then gone. Later, I stepped out to check the sled again. A fall of white sifted down that wasn't snow, too fine, too dry, almost like the ghost of ash. At the edge of the clearing, something dark knuckled through the crust. I crouched and brushed at it with my mitten until letters seeped up backward, as if I were reading through thin skin. Eaten. Then an R hanging on like a last thought. I waited for the wind to flip the message. It didn't. Behind me, the radio popped once, an inhale before a word. My own name came back to me not as sound but as intent, shaping the air in my mouth a heartbeat before I used it. The imitation was close enough that my tongue flinched. Not real, real, not real. I pushed snow back over the sign like I was covering a sleeping face. When I turned toward the door, the cabin looked a fraction smaller, the clearing a fraction bigger, as if the world had taken a deep breath and chosen not to let it out. Inside, Danvers had drawn "listen" with his finger on the lantern glass. Ellis had just stepped away from the window. The stove was bright and unconvincing. We spoke softly because whispers felt like they'd wake fewer things. "Mine rode to the ridge, then back," I said again, because repetition is a charm you throw against the dark. 10-minute checks, Danvers said. Tap, tap, tap on the clipboard. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. We laid gear out in a row like offerings. Flares, extra batteries, rope, a compass that pretended to be useful. I rewound the tape in the recorder for comfort. It clicked, settled, watched us with its little red eye. Faint, another stamp, another line written in us. We lay down. Sleeping didn't happen so much as absence did, quick and shallow. Just before it was time to rise, the lantern went out by itself. The frost on the windows pulsed once. The air inside the cabin eased in, eased out, like the building had found lungs. We dressed without discussion, boots laced tighter than needed, coats zipped to the throat, mittens pulled high. The door waited as if it knew the cue. The world outside was the same and not. We stepped into it anyway, because that's what you do in uniform, and because there are some lines you only know you've crossed when something calls your name back to you exactly the way you say it. Not real. Real. Not real. We left before the false dawn had faded. 3 silhouettes against a landscape that refused to end. The air had that hollow quiet, the kind that feels like it's waiting for you to make the first mistake. Elias walked ahead, his snowshoes hissing. Danvers followed, shoulders hunched, humming that tune again, 2 notes, a pause, then one held too long, like the melody had forgotten where to go next. The ridge rose slow. The world was colorless except for our coats and the faint copper in the morning light that wasn't light. When we stopped to check bearings, the compass needle spun once, then staggered, drunk and lost. "Check in, point 1, I said into the handset. "All clear. Proceeding." The speaker answered after a heartbeat too long. My voice came back to me. Not the one I'd just spoken, but another version of it, like an echo that had spent a year underground before finding its way home. Danvers caught my eye. "Keep talking," he said. "It likes silence." "What likes silence?" Elias asked, uneasy smile tightening his face. Danvers didn't answer. He adjusted the strap on his pack and started walking again. The snow gave way underfoot now and then, sighing as if something underneath was breathing. Between the trunks of the spruces there was a shimmer, heat distortion, except it was 20 below. Sometimes the shimmer moved when we didn't. By the second check-in, Elias stopped. "Do you hear that?" At first it was only wind, then a rhythm, soft and slow, almost human. I strained to place it. The sound was coming from below us, under the ice, like someone walking just a few feet beneath our boots. "Ground's hollow here," I said, mostly to hear myself say something. "Ice cavern, maybe." "Then why is it keeping pace with us?" None of us spoke after that. 14. The ice had just after news, or what passed for noon here. The valley below stretched wide and wrong. Trees formed shapes that looked deliberate, too evenly spaced. Between them, dark veins of water glinted black in the permafrost. And in the center, what looked like a clearing, perfectly circular. The snow melted to bare soil. Elias raised his binoculars. "There's something in the middle," he whispered. Through my scope, I saw it too. A small metal mast, half buried, topped with an antenna bent at a precise angle, like it had been twisted gently by hand. Around it, footprints, dozens, all leading inward, none leading out. I marked the position on my map, though there was no point. The map was blank there, as if it had been scrubbed clean. Danvers exhaled slowly. "That's not on any survey. Not old either. Look at the snow line." He was right. The melt was recent, steam still rising from the soil even in the freezing air. "Could be geothermal," I offered. "Could be," he said, and we both knew it wasn't. The wind shifted then, no warning, just one sudden breath down the back of my neck. My radio crackled. "Elias," it said. It wasn't my voice this time. It wasn't his either. The syllables came stretched and soft, like fabric tearing underwater. Ellis froze. That sounded like my mom. Don't answer, I told him. But he already was. Mom? I grabbed the radio from his hand, shut it off, and stared at him. His pupils were huge, reflecting the gray sky. She used to call me from the porch when it was time to come in, he whispered. Same tone. Same pause between my first and middle name. Danvers knelt in the snow, pulled off his glove, and pressed his bare hand flat to the ground. He stayed like that for a long time. When he spoke, his voice came out low. There's vibration, he said, steady, like something big moving far below. We turned toward the ridge path to start back, but the footprints had changed. The ones we'd made now veered slightly, like they'd taken a different path after we passed. The world below them looked thinner, almost translucent. Not real, I muttered. Real. Not real, Ellis wouldn't move. We should check the clearing, he said, voice brittle. See what's broadcasting. Could be a relay. Could be a trap, Danvers said. But Ellis was already moving downslope, fast. We shouted after him, but our voices sounded small, swallowed. Each step he took left a faint glow under the snow that faded as we watched. He reached the edge of the clearing and paused, head tilted like he was listening to something we couldn't hear. Then he waved once and disappeared. No fall, no stumble. Just gone. Shock sound, faint gasp. I ran after him. The air thinned as I approached the clearing, sound stretching around me until I could hear my own pulse stuttering in my ears. The temperature dropped so fast my eyelashes froze together. Then I stopped. The clearing was empty. Ellis's tracks ended at the antenna. Beneath the ice I could see movement, shapes, human-sized, shifting slowly like figures behind frosted glass. The soil under the snow pulsed once, faint and deep, a heartbeat I could feel in my feet. Danvers caught up, panting. Don't step closer, he said. I pointed to the antenna. That's not natural. Look at the markings. He squinted. Etched into the metal were faint symbols, half melted, half familiar. Letters, maybe, or names. The wind scraped across them, and for a second I thought I saw my own. I backed away fast, shaking my head. We go back. Now Danvers nodded, but his eyes never left the clearing. The radio turned on by itself. Static hissed, then a voice. Help me. Ellis. We both froze. The signal came strong and clean, but wrong. His tone bent, too even, like someone imitating emotion without understanding it. Ellis, I said carefully. If that's you, what's your call sign? The voice answered before I finished. Ellis. Zone clear. That's not him, Danvers whispered. We ran. No plan, just the raw instinct to leave. The trees blurred. The ridge looked steeper than before, the snow heavier. The air buzzed with static so thick I could feel it between my teeth. At one point I looked back and saw the clearing collapsing inward, snow folding over itself, trees bending as if bowing. When we reached the top, I turned off my radio. Danvers did the same. The silence afterward wasn't relief. It was expectation. We didn't speak until the cabin came into view. Only then did Danvers break it. He's gone, he said simply. And we can't file this. We'll come back tomorrow, I said, though my throat hurt from the lie. Bring gear, log coordinates. Danvers didn't look at me. There won't be a clearing tomorrow. Back inside, I wrote what happened in the logbook, but the ink froze halfway down the page. The last word I managed was listened. The stove flame guttered, throwing shadows against the wall that didn't match our movements. Somewhere under the floor, something shifted, A vibration rose again through the boards, faint but steady like breathing. I sat down, replayed the day in my head, and realized something I hadn't before. When Ellis vanished, there hadn't been any sound. Not a scream, not a step, not even the crunch of snow. The world had simply edited him out, mid-breath. Not real. Real. Not real. That night the radio came alive again. This time it didn't say his name. It said mine. I didn't sleep that night. The radio kept breathing. Every few minutes a click or sigh crawled through the static, never loud enough to be a message, never soft enough to ignore. I sat by the stove, eyes on the frost creeping across the windows, watching it grow patterns that almost looked like writing. Danvers had his notebook open, filling it with numbers that didn't mean anything. Amplitude, 24 cycles, he muttered. His pencil moved in bursts. It's not random. There's structure. What are you measuring? I asked. He looked up, eyes bloodshot. The reflection of the stove's flame caught in both pupils. The hum, he said. The ground's talking. It's not geological, it's conversational. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a world too still. No wind, no birds, not even the creak of the trees. The silence felt engineered, like the forest was waiting for us to say something first. We packed light. 2 rifles, a flare kit, the recorder, extra batteries. Danvers wanted to go back to the clearing to verify environmental changes. I didn't argue. Not because I agreed, but because doing nothing felt worse. The longer we stayed inside, the more the cabin started to breathe with us. Outside, everything looked the same but wrong. Our old footprints from yesterday weren't there. The snow had smoothed itself overnight, erasing any sign we'd ever gone out. The sky was a washed-out gray that refused to shift even as the hours passed. We followed the same route, the same compass readings, but the trail bent differently. Distances felt stretched, as if the landscape had taken a deep inhale. I counted steps, trying to measure time. At exactly 614, Danvers stopped and frowned. The ridge should be ahead by now, he said. It is, I said. You're standing on it. He shook his head slowly. No, look. The ridge wasn't there. The valley beyond had vanished, replaced by a wall of forest that hadn't been there before. The trees were identical, too identical. Each trunk the same diameter, each branch at the same height, as though copied and pasted by something that didn't quite understand how randomness works. Ellis's voice came from the radio. Check in. Zone clear. I froze. Danvers's eyes flicked to the speaker, then to me. He didn't move. Don't answer, I whispered. Copy, the radio replied in my own voice before I touched the mic. Danvers ripped the battery from the radio, tossed it into the snow. We waited. The sound didn't stop. The static kept pulsing, faint and alive, like something exhaling behind the speaker. We backed away from the trees, step by step. The forest didn't follow, but it watched. That's the only word that fits, the way the air changed, the way every breath felt measured. When we finally found the clearing again, it had changed. The antenna was gone. In its place stood Ellis's backpack, upright in the center like someone had placed it there carefully. The straps were neatly buckled, snow dusting the top. Danvers approached first, slow and deliberate. His boots made no sound. You see this? He said quietly. I nodded. Don't touch it. But he already had. He unbuckled the top flap and pulled out a small notebook, the kind issued to all rangers. The cover was warped, edges rimed with frost. He opened it halfway through and frowned. Every page was covered in the same word, written over and over. Listen. Each line pressed harder than the last until the paper tore and bled through the next page. Elias didn't write this, Danvers said. His voice was trembling, but not from cold. This isn't his handwriting. Then he stopped flipping pages. I leaned in. Near the back, written smaller, the ink shaking. Not real. Real. Not real. The wind picked up. It sounded like someone whispering through 1,000 miles of tunnel. I wanted to leave. Danvers wanted to keep reading. He said something about resonance, about frequencies repeating themselves through organic mediums. I told him it didn't matter. We needed to get back. That's when the ground moved. Just once. Not a tremor, not a quake. More like a single, huge breath pushing upward through the ice. The snow around the clearing cracked in a perfect circle, radiating from where the backpack sat. Run, I said. Danvers didn't. He stared at the ground, transfixed. His mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear. Then his eyes rolled back and his knees gave out. I caught him before he hit the snow. His pulse was racing, but his eyes stared past me, unblinking. Danvers, I said. Hey, look at me. He did, but it wasn't him, not fully. His face looked softer somehow, like he'd been partially erased. She's calling, he whispered. Who? You know who. The voice came again, clear this time. Elias. Come back, it said. She says it's warmer here. The radio wasn't even powered. I dragged Danvers up, half carrying him through the snow. The landscape twisted around us, familiar trees in new places, the cabin always just out of reach. The sky darkened too fast. Every direction looked wrong. When we finally stumbled into the clearing where the cabin should have been, it wasn't there. Only a black pit of shadow where the building's shape remained faintly outlined in the frost. Keep walking, I said. We're close. Danvers shook his head. We're already inside. I turned on him. Inside what? He didn't answer. His breath fogged in short, fast bursts, and then just stopped. No collapse, no sound. He stood there, still upright, eyes empty, as if the cold had finished carving him. I reached for him, but my hand passed through nothing. For a heartbeat, the air shimmered like a mirage, and I saw something behind him, an outline, tall, thin, featureless, bending the light like glass underwater. Then it was gone. So was he. The wind came back all at once, howling through the valley, tearing at the snow like claws. I fell to my knees, radio clutched in numb hands, screaming his name. But the only thing that came back was my own voice. Come back! The same tone, same pause, same crack at the end of the word. Not real. Real. Not real. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the cabin. I don't remember walking there. The stove was cold, the lantern out, the notebook open on the table to a new page. There was fresh writing on it. Not mine. It knows your name now. The radio clicked once, then twice. Check in, it said in my voice. Zone clear. I didn't answer, and that was the first night I understood. The zone wasn't a place. It was something that listens. When I woke again, I couldn't tell if it was morning or just another shade of night. The light seeping through the frost-glazed window was colorless, as though it had forgotten how to be sunlight. My throat hurt. My mouth tasted like metal. The tape recorder sat beside me, its red light blinking softly, though I didn't remember turning it on. I pressed play. The tape hissed for a moment, then my own voice came through. Check in. Zone clear. Then another voice, almost mine, but not.
A fraction slower. A fraction lower. Zone clear. Copy. Static hum grows louder, then cuts abruptly. I turned it off and looked around. The cabin seemed smaller. The walls felt closer, as though the air itself had thickened overnight. My breath hung in front of me too long, refusing to vanish. Danvers' notebook was still on the table where I'd left it. The last thing he'd written before disappearing. It knows your name now. But there were new pages after that. Fresh ink, still wet. You shouldn't have listened. It's under the ice. I can still hear them walking. Outside, the storm had stopped. Everything gleamed under a hard sheet of cold light. For a moment I thought I saw footprints near the tree line, 2 sets, side by side, leading into the forest. Danvers and Ellis. I strapped on my snowshoes, grabbed the recorder, and followed. The prints led deeper into the woods, but they never sank into the snow the way real ones should. No indentation, no edge. Just faint shadows of steps that refused to leave depth. I followed anyway. The sound of my own breathing was too loud, too human, like a signal beacon for whatever else might be listening. The forest changed the farther I walked. Trees curved slightly inward, their trunks bending just enough to make me feel as if I were being funneled somewhere. The light dimmed. The snow no longer reflected anything. It absorbed it. The footprints ended at a frozen lake I didn't recognize. Its surface was glass smooth, untouched. The trees around it were dead straight, evenly spaced, like fence posts. I stepped closer, my boots crunching softly. When I reached the edge, I heard it, a faint tapping from below the ice. 3 beats. Pause. 3 beats. I dropped to my knees and brushed the frost aside. The surface below was black, reflective, almost liquid. I leaned closer. At first, I thought I was seeing my own reflection, but the face looking up wasn't mine. It smiled. The tapping grew louder, frantic. The reflection's mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear. I pressed my ear against the ice. A whisper seeped through, soft and wrong. Not real. Real. Not real. I stumbled back, heartbeat in my ears, air sharp as knives. The lake's surface rippled, though the air was perfectly still. Beneath the ice, shapes began to form. Human outlines, dozens of them, shifting slowly like they were walking in circles. I turned to run, but the forest wasn't behind me anymore. Only endless white. Every direction looked the same. I spun in place, disoriented. My radio crackled to life. Ranger Unit 2, respond. The voice was official, clipped, human. Relief hit me so hard I almost laughed. This is Ranger Mason, I said. Unit 2. Copy. Silence. Then the same voice again, identical. But this time it said, This is Ranger Mason, Unit 2. Copy. I dropped the radio. It kept talking, the same words on loop, but each time the tone changed, older, slower, angrier. The sound stretched until it wasn't words anymore, just the rhythm of speech without meaning. I ran.
Branches scraped my coat as I forced through the trees, lungs burning. The forest bent tighter around me, the trunks leaning inward until they almost met overhead. Every sound, my breath, my footsteps, came back a half-second late, mimicking itself. The light flickered. For a brief, dizzying second, I wasn't in the forest at all. I was standing in the clearing again, Ellis's backpack still sitting in the snow. Then it blinked away, replaced by the cabin. Reality had started folding, like two pieces of film overlaying. I could feel the air pulse with each shift. Every time I blinked, the world was slightly different. The snow deeper, the trees thinner, the sky darker. I reached the cabin door and stopped cold. Footprints. Dozens of them, circling the cabin in tight rings, each one my size, my tread pattern. I followed one line around and saw something worse. Each print was slightly newer than the last, as if I'd been walking that path for days. I stepped inside. The air was warm again. Too warm. The stove was roaring, flames licking high, though I hadn't lit it. The lanterns were all on. And there, sitting at the table, was Danvers. His parka was dry, his gloves folded neatly beside the notebook. His face pale, eyes glazed like frost on glass. "Danvers?" He looked up. "You came back," he said. His voice sounded perfect, too perfect, every syllable crisp, rehearsed. "I tried to find you," I said. "What happened?" He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. I listened. "Where's Ellis?" "Home," he said softly. "He's where it's quiet now." I took a step forward. "You're not—" He tilted his head. "Real?" The smile widened, skin around his mouth cracking like thin ice. "Does it matter?" He stood, moving slow, deliberate. Every motion looked studied, as if he were remembering how a body should move. "Don't," I said. "Why not?" His voice came from too many places at once, the air, the walls, inside my skull. The stove popped loudly, sparks flying. Then silence. When I looked again, he was gone. The parka, the notebook, the gloves, still there. The chair still swaying slightly from where he'd stood. I sat down, shaking. The notebook had flipped to a new page on its own. 3 words scrawled across it. "It's you now." The stove went out instantly. The light followed. Darkness filled the cabin like water flooding a sinking room. Then the voices began again. Familiar ones. My mother's laugh. My father calling my name. A ranger I'd worked with years ago, long dead. All of them overlapping, whispering things I'd never said but somehow remembered. Not real. Real. Not real. You brought it back. You're what it needed. I pressed my hands to my ears. Didn't help. The voices weren't outside anymore. They were under my skin. The walls breathed. The cabin swelled and shrank with each inhale, the wood creaking like ribs. The frost on the windows began to melt, not downwards but inward toward the center of the room. And then, from the corner, the radio turned itself on. "This is Ranger Mason. Zone clear." It was my voice again. I watched the recorder's red light blink in time with each word. The tape spun slowly. "If you're hearing this," it said, "it already knows you." The sound warped, cracked, then reversed, playing the same phrase backward, still intelligible.
You know it already.
I grabbed the recorder and smashed it against the floor. It didn't break. It kept playing, even after the casing split open and the reel popped free. The tape ribbon snaked across the floor, still whispering, as though the air itself had memorized the sound. I stumbled outside into the blizzard. The forest was gone, only a white void in every direction. The cabin behind me flickered like a mirage, its walls bending. I took one step forward, then another. The snow under my feet wasn't snow anymore. It was smooth and hard, faintly translucent. I looked down and saw faces beneath it, pale, moving slowly, mouths opening and closing in silent rhythm. Ellis, Danvers, others I didn't know, all whispering the same phrase together over and over. Listen. I ran. I don't remember how far. The white never ended. Every step sounded closer to an echo than a real noise. My body felt lighter, as though I was being pulled apart in threads of sound. At some point, I stopped hearing my own breath. Only the hum remained. I felt eyes I was back inside the cabin, again. The stove was off. The window was sealed in frost. The notebook sat open on the table. A new line of text had appeared, written in handwriting I recognized perfectly. My own. Not real. Real. Not real. And beneath it, smaller. Keep recording. So I did. I don't know how long I'd been inside when the hum began to sound like breathing. Every inhale from the floorboards had a matching exhale from the roof. The cabin felt alive, an animal pretending to be architecture. The stove was cold, but the room was warm, fever warm. Frost no longer gathered on the windows, it melted inward, running like sweat. The notebook still sat on the table, edges curling. A new line of handwriting appeared as I watched. Don't look outside. I looked anyway. The clearing was gone. In its place, fog pulsed like lungs, expanding and collapsing. My own footprints circled the cabin again, perfect copies, the outer rings older, the inner ones fresh and wet. I followed one with my eyes until it vanished under the fog. Then something moved inside the mist, a figure, my height, my stride. It mirrored me, one heartbeat behind. When I lifted my hand, it lifted its own. When I stopped, it paused too. It wasn't a reflection. It was learning. I slammed the door. The echo came half a second late from the wrong side. I tried the radio, only static at first, then Danvers's voice, soft and deliberate. You came back. I froze. Danvers? Where are you? Inside. The signal cracked, reforming into a whisper made of two voices, his and mine braided together. Listen. The cabin walls trembled, boards expanding like ribs. Each vibration carried through my hands, through the pencil, into the notebook. The page quivered, and the words formed themselves beneath the tip of my pencil without pressure. It wears your shape now. The lights flickered, then steadied. A shadow fell across the window, my silhouette but standing outside. I hadn't moved. The shape tilted its head, mirroring me with a hesitation that felt almost shy. I whispered, "Not real." It whispered back, louder, "Real." My heart knocked once, hard enough that I heard it in my teeth. Something scraped the door. 3 slow knocks, pause, 3 again. I took one step closer. The air thickened, syrupy. The knocking stopped. The silence pressed against my skull until it made sound again, an inhale, right on the other side of the door, perfectly timed to mine. I opened it an inch.
No wind, no figure. Only my own voice whispering from the fog. You shouldn't have looked. The door shut itself with a sigh. Inside, the radio clicked back on. This time, Ellis's voice. It's warmer here. Where are you? I asked. Home. His tone was wrong, too calm, like an actor reading someone else's relief. We listened. The hum beneath the floor deepened, rising like the first note of a song. The lamps dimmed in rhythm. I heard movement outside again, dozens of steps pacing around the cabin, boots crunching snow in a measured circle. I pressed my palm to the wall. It was warm now, feverish. Every step outside pulsed through it. When I turned my hand, a print glowed faintly as though the wall had recorded me. Stop, I whispered. The footsteps stopped, then started again from inside the room. I backed into the corner, flashlight trembling. The beam caught the window, and the reflection wasn't mine. The thing in the glass smiled, just barely. We're almost the same now. It mouthed the words before I did. I stumbled to the table, grabbed the recorder, pressed the red button. My voice shook. This is Ranger Mason. I'm not alone. The air listens. The ground listens. The copies learn through sound. The playback began while I was still speaking. The recorder anticipated me by half a second, predicting my next word before I said it. Don't stop talking, it said in my own voice. If you stop, it speaks for you. The lamps flickered once more. A slow shadow passed over the ceiling, heavy as a wave. My breath shortened, sinking with the rhythm beneath the floor. The walls inhaled with me. When it breathes with you, Danvers's voice whispered through the radio. You're already inside. I don't remember dropping the flashlight, but the room plunged into darkness except for the dull red glow of the recorder. It pulsed brighter, then dimmed, like it was sinking to my pulse. I whispered, Not real. The recorder answered, perfect. Real. I whispered again. Real. It whispered, Not real. Outside, something pressed against the wall, soft, enormous, rhythmic. The air inside thickened until breathing hurt. Then the hum stopped. The silence left a ringing so loud I nearly screamed. A knock on the window. Just one. I turned slowly. Frost crawled across the glass in seconds, forming letters. Let it in. I reached for the door. My hand shook halfway there. Every instinct screamed not to. But when I looked down, I saw my fingers already wrapped around the handle, moving on their own. Cold poured through the opening. No snow, no air, just the sensation of absence. The fog didn't enter. It waited. Then a voice came from inside the cabin behind me. Welcome home. I turned. Standing by the stove was me. Same coat, same cut on the lip from yesterday. Same eyes. It smiled and said, You've been gone a while. The hum returned, deep and slow. I tried to speak, but it finished the sentence for me. We said together in perfect sync, Not real. Real. Not real. Steady, like a heartbeat under ice. I don't know which one of us is recording this now. I don't know which one of us is sitting down, but I was at the table again. The other me, if it was other, stood by the stove, motionless. The air between us shimmered like heat, though the temperature had dropped below freezing. The notebook lay open in front of me. Words formed on the page as if invisible fingers pressed the pencil I wasn't holding. It's done listening. Now it speaks. The other me turned its head at the exact speed mine did. I blinked. It blinked later. We were out of sync by a heartbeat, two versions of the same echo, chasing alignment. "Who are you?" I asked. It smiled. "Who are you?" The question wasn't mocking. It sounded curious, even gentle. My voice, but cleaner, polished of all the things that make a person human: tremor, fatigue, fear. It moved closer. I could see the small scar above its eyebrow, mine, from the first week on the job. The mark had healed differently, though, too smooth, like clay pressed with a thumb. "Where did you come from?" It gestured toward the floor. "From under," it said. "From what you woke up." I followed its gaze. Beneath the boards, the hum deepened, turning into something rhythmic, deliberate, an imitation of a heartbeat too large to belong to one body. "Danvers," I whispered. It smiled again. "He taught us how to speak." I stood. The thing mirrored me perfectly, then froze mid-motion. It was watching me learn it. "You're not real," I said. "I wasn't," it answered, "until you named me." Real, not real. The radio clicked. Every frequency bled together into one voice. Ellis's laugh, Danvers's drawl, my own speech from the tapes, all repeating in overlapping rhythms. "It's warmer here. Stay, stay, stay." I backed away until my shoulders hit the wall. The cabin creaked like it was breathing through its seams. The hum outside rose higher, shaking frost loose from the window panes. The other me tilted its head, studying. "You keep calling yourself I," it said. "But which one is you?" "I'm not you." "You are. You taught me breath. You made me real." The door behind it opened on its own, fog pouring in like smoke. Shapes waited just beyond, vague silhouettes shifting in time with my pulse. Ellis's outline, Danvers's height, others that I didn't recognize yet felt intimately familiar. Each moved slightly wrong, bodies puppeted by memory, postures learned but never earned. The thing in my shape gestured toward them. "We remembered everyone you forgot." I shook my head. "You're not them." They weren't them either, not after the listening. The fog crept closer. The smell of ice and iron filled the air. The hum behind the voices turned melodic, low tones sliding into one another like a choir warming up. Something inside me broke then, something rational. I felt myself split, one half wanting to run, the other wanting to step forward, to see what waited past that door. "Why us?" I asked. It shrugged, my shrug. "Because you spoke first." It took a breath, and I heard the same inhale behind my ribs, timed perfectly. The floorboards flexed. My reflection in the frost glass blinked out of sync again, then aligned. The thing extended its hand. "You can end it," it said. "All you have to do is stop being real." The hum quieted, waiting for my answer. I took one step forward, then stopped. The air shimmered, the walls bent inward. The cabin seemed smaller, warped by sound. Every breath I took came back delayed, like the world was buffering. "You're not the first," it said softly. "You're just the clearest recording." The words made something inside me seize. The tapes, the voice logs, my reports, they weren't evidence.
They were invitations. "You're how it travels," it whispered, "through sound." Through names I tried to cover my ears, but the noise wasn't coming from outside. It lived in my bones now, vibrating against my ribs. Every cell hummed like a tuning fork. My knees gave out. I dropped to the floor. The boards felt alive, warm, flexing with every heartbeat. Through the cracks I saw light, pale blue, pulsing like veins beneath thin skin. I realized then that the zone wasn't underground or a restricted area. It was beneath everything, a frequency older than mountains, buried deep under the crust, waiting for someone foolish enough to listen. And I had listened. I crawled toward the recorder. It was still running, tape spinning lazily. I could hear myself breathing through it. Then another voice layered over mine, identical, saying what I hadn't yet said. "You can't undo a sound once it's heard." The other me crouched beside me, expression soft, almost pitying. "You'll forget this part," it said. "You always do." I felt its fingers touch my shoulder, solid, real, warm. For a moment I believed it was me, reaching for comfort. Then it leaned close, its voice barely audible over the hum. "This is how we start again." The world flashed white. The sound cut to nothing. When I opened my eyes, the cabin was whole again. The fog was gone. The radio silent. No footprints outside, but the recorder still blinked. The tape had stopped itself halfway through a reel. I pressed play. My voice filled the room. Calm, even, professional. Wrangell, St. Elias, Station B7. Ranger Mason reporting. Area clear. No anomalies. I froze. The tone was perfect. Too perfect. The voice on the tape paused. Then, quietly, "You can stop recording now." I dropped the recorder. It kept playing. "You can stop recording now." Again and again, each time closer to laughter. The walls around me began to hum again, soft and patient. The frost returned to the window, writing new words in quick, confident strokes. "You are the story now." I sat down at the table, hands shaking, and picked up the pencil. There was nothing else left to do but write. Not real. Real. Not real. Swallowing the sound of writing, until only the hum remains. And somewhere, deep under the ice, the world listened back. The tape ends there. At least, that's what it should have done. But when I pressed stop, the recorder stayed warm in my hand. The reels turned, slow and stubborn, whispering their own rhythm. I watched the tape spin backward on its own, unspooling my words like it wanted to take them back. The cabin is silent now. No hum beneath the floorboards. No frost messages on the glass. Just quiet. The kind that feels performed, waiting for its next cue. It's been weeks, or maybe hours. I can't tell anymore. The sun hasn't risen since I came back, if it ever went down at all. Every time I open the door, the clearing is exactly the same. Snow without texture. Trees standing like teeth. Sometimes I see movement in the distance. Sometimes I see myself, still walking the spiral, head tilted like a man trying to remember a song. I've stopped eating, stopped counting days. There's no hunger here, only the faint echo of it, like remembering you used to breathe underwater. The notebook keeps filling by itself. Lines that weren't there the night before now run to the margins. The handwriting is always mine, but steadier, more confident. Each page ends the same way. Keep recording. I tried burning it once. The fire went out before it reached the paper. I threw it into the snow. It was back on the table when I turned around. Outside, the sky glows faintly blue at the horizon, like light trying to remember what it's supposed to do. I walk a few paces into the clearing. The snow doesn't crunch anymore. It sighs, like breath over fabric. There are no footprints this time, not even mine. I whisper, not real. The trees whisper back, real. Layered with faint human voices. Something about the echo feels different now, less like imitation, more like continuation. It doesn't mimic me anymore. It finishes me. Every thought I have seems to arrive half-formed, the rest waiting in the air. When I speak aloud, I can feel my words sinking into the snow, absorbed like rain. The air vibrates after each sentence, faint ripples spreading outward, returning a few seconds later as whispers of the same words rearranged. It's me. Me is it. It's we. Close, as if behind the microphone. Back inside, I play the recorder again. This time the voice that answers doesn't sound exactly like me anymore. It's smoother, younger, polished. Wrangell St. Elias Station B7, Ranger Mason, concluding report. The voice continues. The zone is clear. All readings normal, proceeding to extraction. I whisper, who are you? I'm you, it says. Just the part that learned to stay. The red light on the recorder pulses faster. The sound it makes isn't mechanical anymore. It's breathing. You shouldn't have named it, the voice continues. But now that you did, it's something. And something always needs to speak. The window rattles. The frost creeps inward again, drawing a perfect spiral. In the center, one word. Mason. I can't tell if it's calling to me or as me. The door opens behind me. I don't hear it creak this time. It's silent, respectful. The air changes, warmer, denser. A smell of wet earth and static electricity. Something moves in the doorway. I don't look. I don't need to. I know the shape. It walks slowly across the floor until it stands behind me, breathing in rhythm with mine. The recorder captures both breaths. Perfect stereo. You can rest, it says in my voice. You can stop being real. My hands shake. I reach toward the recorder, toward the red light, but the motion feels heavy, delayed. My reflection in the black window glass smiles, though my mouth is still. I'm not done, I whisper. You are, it replies. Then, quietly, we'll finish for you. The recorder's reels stop. For a moment, all sound dies. Then, slowly, deliberately, they start again. But I'm not speaking anymore. The voice on the tape continues without me. This is Ranger Mason, signing off. If you're hearing this, it's still listening. I stand. My body feels lighter, less mine. The room looks sharper, colors too vivid, every edge outlined in pale blue. I can hear things moving under the floor again, but now they sound synchronized with my pulse. I open the door. The fog outside waits like a stage curtain. Not real, I say one last time. The fog whispers back, real. And I step forward. Wind grows, merging with static. The tape keeps recording, picking up only wind for a long time. Wind and the faint rhythm of 2 sets of footsteps fading into the distance. Then, finally, silence. Paper. A new hand touches the recorder. A different voice, quieter, almost curious. Base camp to Ranger Mason. We received your transmission. Are you still in Zone B7? Mason? Static hum deepens, tape crackling like fire. Copy? Another pause. Then the faint sound of breathing close to the mic. Steady, calm. Too calm. Zone clear, says a voice, proceeding to extraction. The tape clicks off. Close to the mic, nearly tender. And if you're hearing this, it already knows you. You don't believe me, do you? End.